Good evening, I'm Nicola Kelleher and welcome to The Witching Hour, the show that explores all things supernatural. In folklore, the witching hour is the time of night associated with supernatural events, where creatures such as ghosts, witches and demons are thought to materialise and be at their most powerful. This week we're in Buckinghamshire investigating the dark history of one of the most haunted counties in the UK, a place which harbours many strange secrets from witchcraft and spirits to devilish tales and murder. Coming up on tonight's show, we go deep into the haunted Hellfire Caves with paranormal investigator Ashley Darkwood. We reveal what items of kit you need to go on a ghost hunt, plus there'll be a performance from the enchanting Mei Lee Tan. But first, let's welcome to The Witching Hour our guests for this evening, stories of the supernatural author David Kidd Hewitt and parapsychologist from Bucks New University, Dr. Kieran O'Keefe. Today we're going to be talking about haunted places in Buckinghamshire, but before we get onto that, let's get to know you both a bit better. The paranormal, massive, great big umbrella topic. David, can you explain for the viewers at home what the paranormal actually is?
No, not in a word.
Not in a sentence.
I mean, I'm a criminologist, so I began looking at murders and mysteries. That's where it all began. And some of the mysteries turned into ones which were apparently supernormal, supernatural, whatever word was used.
Right.
I didn't know then. But as I investigated more and more and spoke to more people, particularly where there was a murder linked to a haunting, I began to realise that you can't define it in any one word. All you can do is try and document the kind of experiences people are having and then seeing whether they are explained by something that's natural or whether there's something yet to be divulged or found out or investigated.
Interesting. Well, with, science and paranormal and it all combining together, have either of you had any paranormal or unexplained experiences? I'm going to come to you first, actually, Kieran.
It's tough for me because I'm a scientist, so I'm naturally sceptical about this sort of thing. And over the years, I probably, out of, 3,000-4,000 investigations, have had anything up to 150 experiences that other people would call paranormal. However, there was one experience I had, which was on SS Great Britain in Bristol, walked down into the lower class accommodation area and felt spooked. And I wish there was a better, more technical word for it, but there isn't. It's just that feeling of being spooked, the hairs going up on the back of your neck and the feeling like something's not right.
OK, well, David, we mentioned your book earlier on, and one of the stories in your book is about Taplow Hospital. Can you tell us a bit more about your approach to researching the story behind it? Because is it no longer there?
It's no longer there. It's quite a smart little housing estate. Actually, I had to rely a lot on a person called Simon Cornwall, who was an urbexer.
What's that?
Well, there's a whole generation now that have grown up exploring derelict lunatic asylums, as they were called in those days, and hospitals, old military hospitals. And it was a place which these new generation of urban explorers wanted to map, wanted to photograph, creep around and generally find spooky things.
Yeah, of course.
So they went in there with a kind of spookiness about them. And there were a couple of musicians that were there on one day that were investigating it, and there was the most tremendous noise going on, and it frightened the life out of them because it was echoing and making a vortex of wind was building up. And they were terrified because they were the only ones there. I mean, they crept into this derelict building and this wind rushed past them at tremendous speed. Now, they nicknamed this Flincher. And Simon, he went in to investigate as well and took lots of photos. And it is a scary place just to see on photographs.
Must be.
And other people have said they've experienced this as well. They felt trapped, they felt the atmosphere of crowding in on them. And one particular researcher that went there felt that their leg was being held to the ground. It couldn't be moved.
They couldn't move it?
Yeah, so
wow.
all of this is really second-hand. I haven't experienced it. Obviously, I couldn't do. But I've tried to interrogate them in the most, polite way so that I can see if there's a catch. But it was a pretty consistent finding that there was something very odd going on.
Wow. Well, whilst you can no longer explore the old military hospital in Taplow for your ghostly fix, let's take a look at haunted places that you can visit nearby. The town of Olney near Milton Keynes was feared to have the most terrifying supernatural resident in the 17th century, the devil himself. Legend now has it that once a year as midnight approaches, the devil's flaming chariot and 4 headless horses can be heard galloping through the streets before plunging into the pond at the town's end. National Trust site Hewenden Manor has been reportedly haunted by former Prime Minister Benjamin Disraeli since his death in 1881. The ghost of the famous politician is frequently seen standing near his portrait. And now for a more contemporary ghost. The last woman to be hanged in Britain was Ruth Ellis in 1955. She was found guilty of shooting her lover, David Blakely, who is buried in Holy Trinity Church in Penn. Locals claim that the ghost of Ruth Ellis has been seen leaving the graveyard dressed in white. Interesting. Well, it definitely seems that there are a lot of haunted locations in Buckinghamshire. But why do you think that this area is so rich? I'll come to you first, Kieran.
I think anywhere with history is going to have the potential for hauntings and ghost stories associated with it. Buckinghamshire, it benefits from the fact that there are so many old locations, old pubs. You've got a lot of locations where those buildings have actually stayed as they were hundreds and hundreds of years ago. Okay. So there's that aspect.
David?
One of the pubs, the Chequers pub in particular, has got such a history dating right the way back to where they would burn people at the stake on not the pub itself, but that was used as a prison to hold people. And that pub today is still one of the most haunted sites.
I suppose the other reason is it's the southeast, you know, and Buckinghamshire as a home county is very, very populated.
Right.
And of course, ghost stories and haunting accounts, they happen because people are telling stories. The more people you have, the more stories you're going to get.
Passing those stories on. Now, with all these tales of local hauntings, we thought we'd take a closer look for ourselves. So we sent our brave camera team along with local ghost hunter Ashley Darkwood to investigate the apparitions in the depths of the Hellfire Caves.
Here in West Wickham lies a vast underground network of tunnels known as the Hellfire Caves. This name conjures up all sorts of images. What was originally seemingly an act of philanthropy seems to hide some very, very sinister motives. What's behind all the apparitions that paranormal investigators and ghost hunters have encountered for hundreds of years? Let's go inside and find out. Excavation of the caves began in 1748. Sir Francis Dashwood realised that local farmers were impoverished, crops had been failing. He paid them the fee of 1 shilling per day to excavate the chalk from the caves to go towards building up West Wickham Road, which was a vital trade route between London and Oxford. Also known as the Monks of Medmenham, the Hellfire Club held secret orgies and parties in the cave network. They even got prostitutes to dress up as nuns to disguise their occupation. For decades, visitors to the caves have reported numerous accounts of paranormal activity. Apparitions have been seen, strange mists, footsteps in the gravel when no one else is around. Throughout the cave network are dozens of inscriptions in the wall, some suggesting these faces are of satanic nature. Of all the famous ghosts that are found here in West Wickham Caves, one is believed to be that of Suki. She was a local serving girl and fell in love with a local aristocrat. She was told by 2 boys that he wanted to meet her here to propose to her. She arrived in the caves wearing a wedding dress, only to find the 2 boys had played a trick. A fight broke out and Suki was killed when one of the boys threw a stone at her head. Another famous ghost is said to be that of Paul Whitehead. He was a notorious co-founder of the Hellfire Club and close friend of Sir Francis Dashwood. Upon his death, he asked that his heart be buried in the mausoleum up above the caves, and it was. In 1940, an Australian soldier stole his heart, and it's believed that Paul Whitehead has haunted this cave network ever since. Not everything that happens here in Hellfire Caves can be explained by science or logic. The fact that there have been so many sightings of Paul Whitehead and Suki suggests that there is something much bigger going on here. And that doesn't even take into account all the other forms of paranormal activity that are less well documented. There is a theory that the anguish and heartbreak that Suki felt somehow remains within the fabric of this building.
Well, Ashley, you made it out alive.
Only just.
Welcome.
Yeah, we made it, yeah.
So what was it like in there, in those caves?
It's a fascinating place. There's so much history and folklore, and you're not really sure what's genuine fact and what's exaggerated.
Yeah.
And all that kind of plays into the psychology of you walking in there. And the actual layout of the caves itself, you know, you're going quite deep underground. It's very damp. It's very kind of claustrophobic in places.
Yeah.
So just from the natural phenomena alone, it's fascinating. Never mind the paranormal phenomena.
Interesting. Now, I know, David, you've written about the Hellfire Caves. Is it surprising that they're said to be haunted, given all that debauchery and whatever went on?
Debauchery was there. It has been exaggerated. Like a guidebook for 1901 talked about the madman, in fact.
Oh.
Dashwood wasn't
Right.
mad. I think what's forgotten here in this, we should mention, is above he built heaven. He built that globe where he and his friends could sit in the globe in a form of heaven and drink or whatever. And directly, if you drop a plumb line down to the sticks, to the STYX, the hell, it was directly below the church above.
Oh, really?
So while people are up above praying and doing the Lord's good work, they could be down below laughing at them while they do their rather more, the orgies and all of the others.
Well, each to their own.
It's exactly perpendicular right the way down from
Isn't
top
that
to bottom.
interesting?
But yes, there has an experience. The bride, Suki, who was a barmaid at the Georgian Dragon.
Yeah.
I've been in the tea shop there when some American visitors have said how quaint you have civil ceremonies in your caves. What a really good idea. And I said, no, there's no civil ceremonies down there. So, but we saw a bride. We saw this woman in white running down. And we assumed that it was a marriage thing you had, because it wasn't spooky, it was in the middle of the day or whatever.
Fantastic.
And when we explained that, no, there's no weddings there, and then they knew the story, they didn't know the story till we told them.
Wow.
Yeah,
Isn't
that
that
has,
interesting?
and I was there at that time, so I was quite surprised to have that luck. And they weren't planted
No, of course.
by any team. Yeah, it was.
Well, let's not forget that, we're talking about a tourist attraction here. Kieran, I'm going to come to you with this. Americans and ghosts, one thing, but do you think that this is possibly stories that have been passed on to generate tourism? Not just maybe for the Hellfire Caves, but other places as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's the same history of storytelling that's associated with even the Dublin Hellfire Caves. There's a similar, or Hellfire Club, there's a similar kind of story around that. So yeah, you are looking potentially at storytelling that's building on these ghost stories, that's building on this particular club. The fact that you've got a place that's called Hellfire Caves, as a psychologist, at the root of my parapsychology training, we always talk about suggestion.
Yes.
If you suggest to people that a place is haunted, they're going to have those experiences. You don't even need to suggest to people that the place is haunted, because it's called Hellfire Caves. So the fact that you go in there, but also even the nature of the actual caves itself, going into those tunnels, going to such an extent that it's very, very difficult to be in kind of a claustrophobic environment and think, if I want to get out, I've got a long run to go, and not be scared by it, So there's a lot of psychology going on.
I mean, there were Hellfire Clubs around. It was a concept, a Hellfire Club.
I see.
Yes, so this isn't the only one.
Right.
It's the only one with caves, as far as I know. But there was a little bit of a fashion for Hellfire Clubs.
It was all going on, wasn't it?
Do what you want. They had a French motto, didn't they?
Yeah, and they were very...
Do whatever you want.
They were practical jokers. There was one instance of one of them taking a baboon down into the caves and letting it loose.
I've been to a club like that in London.
Yeah. But I mean, just like I say, these stories have become legendary and passed into folklore, and
Of course.
maybe turned into something that maybe they weren't, which has played into the psychology.
Absolutely. Well, Ashley's brought in some of his paranormal kit to show us how it all works on an investigation. But first, let's take a look at him on a recent investigation with the Brooklyn Paranormal Society.
Tonight, I'm meeting up with the Brooklyn Paranormal Society, and we're going to do an investigation.
There might be a paranormal element. This place is historical and the site of a devastating, horrific battle.
We may have a spirit here.
We're asking any spirit entities, please come forward and communicate with us. We mean you no harm.
So, Ashley, this is your ghost hunting kit. Can you talk us through what we have here?
Okay, yeah, so this is fairly basic standard equipment. First of all, we have a digital dictaphone.
Okay.
The good news is the cheaper the better. The higher end models tend to have noise filtering capabilities, which on a paranormal investigation you don't want.
Okay.
If there is going to be electronic voice phenomena, you want to be able to pick it up from anywhere in the room.
Okay, this looks interesting with lots of lights on it. What's
Yeah,
this?
absolutely. So this is a very standard action camera. Again, you can get these fairly cheap. You don't need to go for the high-end models. Very easy to modify into full spectrum capability. You just remove a filter from inside, attach an infrared illuminator, and hey presto, you have basically night vision capability.
Wow.
And of course, your standard kind of camcorder. Basically, you want to be recording in kind of normal definition, the normal spectrum of light, so you can cross-reference between the two.
Interesting. Okay, what's this?
We also have the thermal imaging camera. Quite handy to actually pick up any heat signatures.
Oh, that's me, look.
That's you, yep. And again, there's a theory that anything that contains mass should have a thermal signature to it.
Okay.
Or maybe vice versa. If you can see on one camera a person, but there's no heat signature of a person, you could maybe argue that is paranormal in itself.
Not just a very cold person.
Could be, yeah.
But then if you didn't see them with the naked eye and you got the outline...
Absolutely,
That
yeah.
would be quite
And again, a lot of people talk about feeling cold spots in
Yeah.
reputedly haunted locations, and with that you can actually see in pretty much real time
if there is quite an innocent draft coming in from a window, or if there is this kind of weird cold vortex going on.
OK, what's this? We've seen these on ghost shows before,
Absolutely,
I'm sure.
yes. So these are both K2 meters. These measure electromagnetic radiation. All electrical appliances will give off a degree of electromagnetic radiation. And this is crucial in terms of paranormal investigation because high levels of EMF exposure can cause insomnia, paranoia, fatigue, hallucination.
Wow.
All the things that might make a person believe they're haunted. Also, on some of these other ghost shows, you will have seen, they say that a spirit entity can influence these meters.
Manipulate them.
Absolutely, yeah, so it can make them light up on command. So kind of handy to have these. They're kind of dual purpose.
I like the sound of that. OK, this one looks interesting.
The REM pod, yeah, almost works in the opposite way to these two. This actually emits its own electromagnetic field, and if anything goes within that field, it will sound an alarm and light up. So you could lock that off in a room, lock the door, nobody's meant to be in the room, but if you hear it beeping, then it's likely that something's going on with it.
OK. Now, these look a bit James Bondy.
Yeah, actually quite innocent. In fact, this here is a laser grid pen. Quite a useful little bit of kit. As you can see, it illuminates, it spreads a laser grid, as the name suggests. And again, if you lock this off in a particular room and you see something interfere with the grid pattern, and there's no one there, again, you could probably argue that it's paranormal.
Wow, fascinating stuff. Well, now you've seen what you need if you want to start ghost hunting. But let's take a look at any ghostly sightings that you have captured and sent into the show. This is a piece of CCTV footage that was taken by caretaker Tim Harris from Upminster. He works in Endgame Primary School and discovered some unusual goings-on when he checked the security tapes of the building recently. Let's take a look. Spooky. OK, Kieran, I'm going to come to you first. Could this be a haunting?
It could be, because of course anything that anybody's submitting and saying, I think this might be a ghost, could actually be a ghost. Let's not beat about the bush. That could actually be a ghost. However, what I'm seeing on the CCTV there is a door moving, apparently of its own accord. Now, if it's moving of its own accord, it could be paranormal, it could be spirit causing it, but we all know doors sometimes move of their own accord. They might be just, on the latch or on a hinge slightly stuck, and for whatever reason, a gust of wind or something like that, it could actually close. So there's not enough information there for me environmentally.
Yeah.
So I don't know about the weather conditions. I don't know about that door.
Yeah, it could be a rising bolt that's closed on its own.
Anything like that. So whilst it's fascinating because we can see that it doesn't look as though somebody's actually moving the door themselves, so it's not kind of a fake footage, there could be other explanations for it.
I mean, I think as it's a door and it's opening, we expect to see something or someone come through that door.
Possibly. You almost do.
Yeah.
Your mind almost does see somebody.
Yeah.
Of course, the problem is once you take the footage out of that environment, it's going to be next to impossible to completely replicate those conditions again, like Kieran was saying. What was the atmosphere? What was the humidity? So it could be a needle in a haystack, once in a lifetime occurrence that will happen. And when you go back to investigate, everything seems normal. So then that might trick you into saying it was paranormal because you never get those exact conditions again.
Very true. I mean, Tim was obviously spooked enough to send that in to us. Any advice for him, David?
Don't be spooked.
Don't be spooked.
No.
Do what Ashley was showing us earlier on in terms of some of those gadgets. If you think there's something there, set up a camera. Lock off a camera. CCTV is notoriously bad quality. Set up something that's a bit more high definition and see if you capture
It
it.
was grainy, wasn't it? Very grainy.
Very grainy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's quite cheap to get a better quality one now.
Yes.
Just for that
No
purpose.
excuses, Tim. Get us better footage.
It's certainly interesting. I mean, that would kind of tick a box for me to say I'm interested enough to go and visit that place.
OK. Well, don't forget to send in any of your footage or photographs that you might have of unexplained activity, and they could appear on the Witching Hour. Next week, we head to Cornwall to investigate supernatural secrets in the southwest. We'll be joined in the studio by the curator of the Boscastle Museum of Witchcraft and Magic and the leader of the Cornwall Paranormal Research Team. We'll take a look at some famous haunted sites, including Tintagel Castle, Jamaica Inn, and we spend the night in Bodmin Jail. But that's it for today's show. I'd like to thank my guests, Ashley Darkwood, David Kidd-Hewitt and Dr. Kieran O'Keefe. Thanks for watching. Playing us out on the Witching Hour tonight is a musician from South London who's been writing her own music since she was 7 years old. Please welcome to the stage, May Lee Tan.
presence never left me. It always lingered near. At least it's you I think I feel. Your voice I want to hear. That I do hear. See the pictures on the wall, I see them moving, changing. Your eyes follow me around the room. When I caught your gaze, it didn't feel like you. Ooh, it's that time of night again. They call it the witching hour. Nothing's ever as it seems. Ooh, am I crazy to believe? To believe? Voice echoes from one ear to another, taking over. I'm feeling myself drift away. There's something taking over me. Now my memory starts to fade. I cannot remember. People say I'm acting strange, but I can't place what has changed. What has changed? It's that time of night again. They call it the witching hour. Nothing's ever as it seems. Am I crazy to believe? To believe? It's that time of night again. They call it the witching hour. Nothing's ever as it seems. Ooh, am I crazy to believe? To believe? It's that time of night again. 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 They call it 3 a.m.